Welcome to the Travel Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Vandenberg. On our show, I interview and connect with leaders across travel, hospitality, and tourism. We talk leadership in our industry, what has shaped them, the successes, failures, and everything in between. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Lan Elliott, principal and co-founder of Acacia Hospitality. The Travel Leader Podcast is brought to you by The Travel Leader, a leadership coaching and content company. I provide leadership coaching and workshops for individuals and teams looking to accelerate their leadership performance. Learn more at www.thetravelleadercoach.com. And with that, let's welcome Lan Elliott to the show. Hello, Lan. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Travel Leader. Today, I am with Lan Elliott, principal and co-founder of Acacia Hospitality. And so I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
You. I always enjoy spending time with you, so it's great to be here.
Yes. And so just a little backstory on where we met. We were brought together by one of our favorite people, Rachel Humphrey, who co-founded the Women in Hospitality Leadership Alliance. And we've been collaborating together on a project to bring more women to conference stages. And so we've had lots of time to work virtually together and also spend some time in person at some of the top industry conferences this year.
Absolutely. It's been really fun working with you this year. So thank you.
Great. So to get us started today, I would love to hear what you think the red thread has been throughout your career.
I think I've always wanted to have an impact and leave my corner of the world a bit better than I found it. That has really led me to wonderful places. Like I have had the opportunity to work on a couple transformative portfolio deals when I was at Host. I had the chance to expand the W Hotels brand in London and Paris. Just fun projects that I have had the opportunity to do just to get that little part of the world what my company needed at that moment. And also creating a team at IHG and building it into a high performing group of extraordinary people that I was really honored to lead for a number of years. And now working on initiatives to advance women in hospitality leadership, like working with you on the Alliance's podium committee to be a catalyst for forever change.
So it's like, what I'm hearing from the examples you're giving is that impact that you're looking to have is you're creating something, you're growing something, expanding. Is there's something about as well the kind of results that you want to leave behind in those kinds of projects and positions?
I always want to see that I've made a bit of a difference, have some measurable difference from if I'm in a job, what was the company able to do before I was there versus what is different once I leave, what have I left, the breadcrumbs that I've left that hopefully have improved things or grown things or expanded programs. And I think growth and expansion has been something that I really loved to do throughout a number of my roles.
Yeah. Well, I can see that from the many hats that you wear in different positions, and I know you're going to give some more great examples throughout our discussion today. We just kind of, this is a great bridge to the question. The next question is, what's the impact that you want to have in the travel industry as a whole?
Well, I think one of the things I am working on right now with you is to see more women and underrepresented groups in leadership roles. And that shows up in a few different ways. One is the podium committee that we're working on to get more women on the stage and through various different efforts. But another thing that I'm working on is an introduction to hotel ownership class that I'm offering at hotel schools, where I want to get more students interested in the hotel real estate side of the industry earlier in their college careers so that they can follow that path, take classes, get internships, so that we can have more people in the real estate field and hopefully have more leaders and that are women and underrepresented groups at the top in the future. But I think we need to start earlier if we're going to affect change. And part of that is just to create awareness, because a lot of people go to hotel school and they think operations and they don't even know about real estate, like I didn't when I went to hotel school.
Right.
So I think it's great to expose them to different areas of the industry and hopefully spark some interest.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, I think there's a commonality between both hotel ownership and the topic of bringing more women and underrepresented groups to conference stages. What's important about diversifying those areas where we're so used to seeing kind of the same faces and profile of people?
I think there's a few different things that are important about having more different looking people on stages. One of them, obviously, is representation matters, right? They can't think and they can't dream if they don't see people who look like them on the stage. There is a subliminal thing of, you know what, that person looks so different from me, I could never get there. So that's part of it. There's another part of it to showcase that there are women. When we started talking with conference organizers, they said there aren't women. Well, with just a few people's contact lists, we've developed a list of almost 600 women that could be on various stages in the industry. And so I think being able to showcase a number of different women. I'm a big believer that the women know the women. So if you want to find more women, or
Right.
if you want to find people from a certain underrepresented group, go talk to people in that group because they know more people. So I think showcasing more people is also important because it provides inspiration, but it also allows them to practice their public speaking skills and hopefully be viewed in a different light by the people that they work with in a way that maybe people didn't think about them in that way in the past. So I think there's a few different reasons to have different voices up there and also just different perspectives, right? The things we always hear about is that
Right.
you have diversity of thought and different approaches to things that just look very different. If you have different lived experiences that can shine through that lens, it'll look different as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that raising awareness and I mean the words that came to me while you were talking is that really just showing people also what's possible, right? Like that you can do this, or this is a pathway for you. And constantly keeping that message at the forefront.
Absolutely. Because if you can't see it, it's hard to dream it.
Yeah, absolutely. How would someone you work with closely describe you as a leader?
I knew I was going to get this question. It's the one that I struggled with the most. I had a
You're
few
not
ideas,
alone. Usually people do.
but I asked my former teammates what they thought. I asked a few of them, and some of the themes that came back were direct, but with the intention of helping people learn and grow. And I think direct is something that I always hear when people talk about me direct. You always know where you stand with me.
Mhm.
And also honest, tough, and fair. I care about people that I work with, and they saw that I was willing to go the extra mile to help them get to the next level. And to do that, you really need to take time to get to know each person individually on a personal level. And we did that a few different ways. I used personality tests to understand each of the people and what they needed. And we also did a number of team building activities regularly. It wasn't a once a year sort of thing. We did team building activities quite frequently. And it allowed me to interact with each person in a way that worked best for them. I think I mentioned I'm a big believer of meeting people where they are. So once I understand what each person needs, that is helpful for me to be able to understand how to communicate with them and how to give them the tools and the support that they need. And big emphasis on having a true team dynamic. I started with a team that was an assemblage of people coming from different areas. And how do you create a collaborative team where we really relied on each other and felt comfortable doing that? And so we had to balance working together both professionally and in casual settings, and that allowed us to strengthen our relationships.
Yeah. Well, I am discovering why we work so well together because I also would describe myself as direct, but very direct, but also someone who really invests in people and relationships. And I think when those two things are paired together, that it's like a yin and yang kind of thing almost. Like they complement each other. And that you're able to really bring out the best in people when you deeply care about them, but you're also honest and direct with what they need to do to develop more or to collaborate better with you. I think really magical things can happen. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I can relate a lot to those attributes for sure.
Yeah. I had to learn them. They were not things that came naturally to me, to be honest, but it made a huge difference. A big part was just slowing down so that I could get time to get to know people. And that really served me rather than just running to the next project, which
Yeah.
was what I would originally do. But slowing down so you can go faster
Yeah.
really works well.
Yeah. Absolutely. What makes your life and work meaningful?
It's a really good question. I think being able to make a difference, going back to what I said at the beginning, if I can take my lived experience of being usually the only woman in the room, the only woman on the team other than the admin in real estate for 30 years. And I can take that lived experience, which was very lonely at times, and help other women that are coming up in the industry to have a very different experience. I'm a big believer that community and finding your person or your people is really important. And if I can, through my work, allow women to not feel so alone when they're going for those jobs, especially jobs in areas that are very male dominated, especially at the top that are male dominated, I think it allows them to lean into their gifts more and to be able to thrive and hopefully continue to rise. And also just helping one another, right? Because we all experience things that are challenging. And if you can
Mhm.
have people help you to get there or not feel alone on your journey, that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, that you have, your path wasn't the easiest, being often the only woman in the room, and that is also giving you some empathy for the people that come up behind you, and that being able to give back and bring make it a little bit easier for the next group of women is something that's really important to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, in that process and the challenges that you have faced, how have you, and I apologize, I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but it was a good bridge to, how do you overcome obstacles like that have come in your path?
Well, I'm a big believer in doing your homework and being prepared. So if I have an obstacle, I'm going to study it, I'm going to gather the facts. And a lot of the times when you've looked at an obstacle or a challenge from a few different vantage points, you'll start to see the answer emerge from really understanding the problem. So I think doing the homework, showing up prepared, and I think part of it is just that I love a challenge. So if you tell me something can't be done, but I think it's really important that it needs to get done, then that's just like waving a red flag in front of a bull. I just want to try. I want to see if I can do it. So I'll give you an example. When I joined W, there was an opportunity for a ground up, purpose built W to be built in the center of London. And there are not a lot of opportunities to do that. My husband and I were working for Starwood in Europe at the time. And my boss had told me, don't even bother. That'll never get done. Don't waste your time on it. But it was such a unique opportunity. In the end, it took three of us, turned out to be myself, my husband, and Bart Carnahan, who was the head of development in Europe at the time. Now he's head of development for Four Seasons globally. But the three of us worked on this deal together over a 2-year period, and very complex, a lot of moving parts. And we ended up getting it signed the week before
Wow.
Lehman Brothers went under in 2008 and the Great Recession really started. So if we had gone another 2 weeks, that deal probably would have never gotten done. But those owners did end up building the hotel in the center of London, like we talked about, opened during the recession. And I think it's still the only W in London to this day. But it was a
Wow.
challenge that it's a good example of a challenge that someone told me couldn't be done. And there
And you're like,
is
no, I'm going to do this.
we're going to get this done
Yeah.
because when else are we going to get an opportunity to do this, right? And there is a saying, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, I'm going to say it wrong. If you
Yeah.
want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with
Go
others.
together.
And I
Yeah.
think we had a team on that deal with Mike, my husband, working on one aspect of it, and Bart on another. And at any given time, two of us wanted to walk away, and the third person brought us all back together and clarified the reason we were doing it. But I don't think it would have happened if we didn't have all three of us working on it. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a good example of a challenge, but that you can do difficult things if you can do it together as a team, support one another, and keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from that example too is, and your love of a good challenge is that you're also very self-aware about what your strengths are and, where you can kind of lean into that challenge and use your strengths to get things accomplished. So are there, on the flip side of that, are there examples when you've actually underestimated yourself as a leader?
For sure. I think, sometimes people are told early in life that they have great potential and it inspires them to go on to do great things. But I think a lot of times no one ever tells you that you have potential to do anything. At least I didn't get a lot of that. And so I had to figure it out for myself. So underestimating is a big part. But underestimating myself, I would say a good story there is I had a bad experience with the first person to report to me. It just wasn't a relationship that gelled. And I convinced myself as a result of that I couldn't be a leader. And then
Mm,
one day I found myself leading a team, and I started out by trying to lead the way my boss led us. And as you can guess, that was a total failure because he had a different style. It wasn't authentic to me, and it didn't work at all. And shortly after, I got my executive coach, Anne Marie Carlisi, and we did a 360. We did a bunch of analysis, and Kurt Kinsell, who was the CEO of IHG in Atlanta at the time, has a saying, which is that the hardest work you'll do is on yourself. And I think that's so true. But I love a challenge.
yeah.
So I thought, okay, how do I do this? I wanted to become an inspiring leader. And my backstory was I didn't think I could lead at all. How do I become an inspiring leader? And Anne-Marie helped me a lot. And I set a big goal for us as a first-time leader of a team. My goal was for people to look at our team and say, every person in that group is a superstar.
What a great
And
goal.
yeah. And a few years later, I confessed this goal to Kevin Kearney, who is someone that I had admired from the time I had started doing deals in the late 90s. He was more senior and had done all these incredible deals at Marriott and was at IHG at the time. And I confessed this goal to him. And he said, Lan, I think you've accomplished that. Every person on your team is incredible. And I had it, the visual in my head at that moment was from how the Grinch steals Christmas. And
Still
that
Christmas,
moment
yeah.
when the Grinch finally gets the meaning of Christmas and his heart grows 3 times, that
Ah,
was me. And for me, that is still my proudest moment in my career, more than any deal I did or any hotel that I was a part of getting built. That one moment, the recognition of my team, was my proudest moment.
oh, that what a great story. I mean, I like the fact that you had that vision and you really worked hard to get there and to overcome that self-doubt, right, from a poor experience, and then to have it verified by a trusted colleague. I can imagine and I can see how much that meant to you in your career. It's a great example. So moving a little bit forward here, and you just gave a great example of an event that has shaped you as a leader. Is there another example of an event or a milestone in your career that has shaped you as a leader?
I would say, I'll tell you one that stays with me because it's an example of how I could do better. And I was in a calibration meeting with our chief development officer. And in those meetings, he sits with his direct reports and we talk about each of the people on our team and talk about how they're doing, what their ratings are, whether they're ready for promotion. And I didn't know these meetings went on until much later in my career. It would have been valuable to know that earlier. But I remember sitting in that room, and again, only woman in the room. And one of my peers was talking about a woman who worked on his team and saying that she was good where she was. She's not looking for more responsibility. She's not looking to get promoted. And that just sounded odd to me. So I said, are you really sure that can't be true? And he said, no, I know her. I'm sure this is where she wants to be. She's happy right here. And because it wasn't someone on my team, I let it go. And later, and even still to this day, I tell myself I should have written her name down and taken her out to
Mm,
lunch and really got to understand her a little bit more because maybe he was right. But I think that people underestimate women's ambition so much. I know for sure
yeah.
on my part, I've always been underestimated on the point of ambition. And there is a statistic that less than 10% of women discuss leadership in their performance reviews, whereas over 90% of men have had the experience of discussing leadership in performance reviews. And I think
Wow.
about how different our experiences are as men and women getting performance reviews, and that do we even ask? Is it even part of the conversation? And so that story I share as something that I keep with me, that I need to speak up, I need to do more, I need to take more action and not just let things go when I see things like that.
Right. And yeah, I mean, like it's like you felt this kind of gut instinct, like that maybe there was more of a story there. Um, and to be able to really pull that out and find to verify, right, whether that was true. Are there, I mean, you had a clear lesson there for yourself of what you would like to do differently if presented with that kind of situation again. What are the other lessons, do you think? I think it's such a critical point about ambition and women's ambition in particular. What do you think are the other lessons that come out, for example, for the woman herself or for her direct supervisor in that case?
I think ambition is something that's almost been a dirty word, right? If someone says that a woman's ambitious, that's not necessarily a compliment.
Mhm.
Whereas it's also maybe more recently not as good a connotation for men as well. But I think for men, ambition has sat more comfortably than it has for women. And I think it's not just other people's perception of women, but women's perception of themselves. And I see
Mhm.
this a lot with young women when I go and talk to students in hospitality schools. They're just not dreaming big enough. And that's part of one of the things I work on, Castell at College, which is now forward thinking, where we bring panels of executive women to speak at hospitality schools. And that really is about helping them dream bigger and seeing women in aspirational roles. So
Mm.
I think part of it is to encourage ambition, to make it not a dirty word, but it's okay for you to have big dreams for yourself and to go after them. But I think also there are a number of issues that make it difficult for women. One of the ones I talk about when we interview leaders on DEI advisors is an assertiveness double bind,
Mm.
where women who are assertive can be viewed as difficult. And a
Mhm.
double bind is, I didn't know what that was when I first discovered this concept, but it's this idea that no matter what you do, you can't win. And women can experience where if you're too nice, you're not strong enough to be a good leader. And if you're too strong and you negotiate too hard, well, now you're difficult and you're not able to build relationships that are going to be important for you to progress. So there really is this fine line that women have to navigate. So I think ambition is part of that fine line. How do you do it in a way that is acceptable? Because when you go against gender norms, there is backlash for that. So you need to find exactly the right way to do it. And it's a really fine needle to thread. So I think it can be really challenging for women.
Yeah, I mean what you're really talking about too is another way to look at ambition is thinking about it and, well, how can you grow your career and grow as a professional, grow as a leader. And part of that comes with work, getting a promotion, asking for a promotion, or a new set of responsibilities, things like that, that allow you to, like, kind of move up the ladder. So there's something there, I think, about framing it in that way, is that, I'm looking to improve myself. I'm looking to challenge myself to the next level. That is part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And it made me think of two things. One of them is the importance of finding champions and mentors. And what
Mm.
I did wrong for a long time is I looked for someone who looked like myself. And as I mentioned, there were very few people who looked like myself. There were hardly any women, much less women of color in my area of the industry. And that's what I kept searching for and thinking I didn't have a mentor because no one looked like me. But what I've realized now is you can patchwork it together and it works beautifully. You can find the woman who's a person of color who's the general counsel who might be your champion in certain areas, but then you can also have your mentor or champion who might be a white man but is more directly working in your area of the industry and can give you more specific job advice. So my advice to myself would have been stop looking for the perfect mentor, look for a series of mentors that can help
Right.
you with different things.
Yeah. No, that's great advice for
Yeah, the
sure.
other thing you made me think of was asking for a promotion or a raise in the right way is so important because, as I've mentioned again, that being assertive can come across in a not happy way if you ask the wrong way. And I want to share a story of someone who had the best ask to be promoted that I'd ever seen. And we had hired him straight out of school. And so he was 22, 23. We hired him as an analyst. We knew he was super smart, and he turned out to be a very hard worker and brilliant. I always love when I hire people who are smarter than me, and he certainly is one of those people. And he was just killing it at work. And he came to me after like 6 or 8 months and asked about, the opportunities to get promoted from an analyst to a manager. And I thought, it usually takes at least 2 years before you're ready for the next level. And you haven't even been here a year yet. So I think it's really unlikely, but you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. And he
Mm-hmm.
went away and he thought about it. And here's the brilliant thing that he did. He came back to me in one of our one-on-ones and brought 2 job descriptions, one of an analyst and one of a manager, the role he had and the role he wanted to have. And he said, can you help me understand which areas I need to work on and focus so that I can improve to go from where I am today as an analyst to become a manager?
Yeah.
And he had
Yep.
highlighted the differences between the two. And we sat down and walked through them. And I gave him very specific advice. And he's just brilliant. And he did the work. And, I promoted him at his 1 year
Yep.
anniversary, which is what I said couldn't be done. But he was so brilliant and so self aware and so willing to put in the work to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
He was ready for it. So it can be done,
Yeah.
but you have to do it in the right way.
Yeah. Well, and that's identifying, okay, this is my aspiration and this is what I'm capable of, but and where's the gap? And asking for that feedback. Like, what do I need to do to get there? I think that is a very important lesson when asking for a leadership position and wanting to move up. That's critical. Great story. Thanks for sharing that. So, back to some of your qualities as a leader. What leadership competencies do you think you need in the next period of rapid change?
That's a good question. I think a lot of what I have been doing, which is continuing to network and be with people who fill my cup and who are on the same journey together. I recently read a Wall Street Journal article about Travis Kelce because I'm a Swiftie, not because I love football. But in that article, Travis talks about how his college football coach gave him the secret of life, which is that every person you meet is either a fountain or a drain.
Mm,
And when I read that, it was a light bulb moment for me because I realized I naturally gravitate towards being a drain. It's so easy to criticize things and tear down projects, find all the problems with them. It is much harder to build and create. And for me, reading that, it really helped me understand that I needed to be more of a fountain. So that's an intentionality rather than a resolution for this year. It was an intentionality that I set for myself to be more of a fountain, to lift other people up and really be intentional about doing that. And so with that, what I found is that it helps me, one, attract fountains. And it's really the fountains that fill my cup. So working with my DEI advisors, principals like David Kong, Rachel Humphrey, Dorothy Dowling, and working with the people on Rachel's Women in Hospitality Leadership Alliance on a shared goal, the Podium Committee, which you're leading brilliantly. Spending time with those people who are fountains and want to help other people, that really fills my cup. So I
Yeah.
think being intentional about the energy that you bring into the room with you, and also spending time with people who have that shared purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what the word that comes to mind to me is being an inspiration, or inspiring. And the reason I ask this question is because, I think we have been and continue to be in this period of very rapid change, a lot of uncertainty. And as a leader, how do you navigate that, with your teams and with the people around you? And that being that inspiring light is such an important part of that. I would absolutely agree. Going back to that idea of being the fountain versus the drain, it's a great metaphor for that. Love it. What is your leadership edge?
So we talked earlier about doing your homework and showing up prepared. So I think being a hard worker is part of that.
Yeah.
I think my special gift is I'm a really good reader of people. It's helped me in negotiations, and it's more about hearing what's not being said. So
Mm.
I think that is one of my gifts, and it's something I should have leaned into earlier because it's really helpful in knowing who to gravitate towards and who to maybe avoid a little bit because they're drains, for
Right.
example. And the other piece I think that is a strength for me is a growth mindset. I love challenges. I love learning new things. And I always think there's room for continuous improvement. It's really when I'm treading water or surrounded by fixed mindsets, that's when I get a bit itchy for something different.
Yeah. I hear you. I can relate to that. That idea of reading people, I think is so important to relationships, which is fundamental to leadership. Could you be a little bit more specific? What are the skills that you use to read people well?
I don't think I've ever tried to put it into words. It's more of a feeling, maybe it's an intuition, but I think it's
Mhm.
based on listening.
Mm.
And hearing and listening are just such different skills. I think people think they're the same thing, but you could listen to someone, but until you really hear what they're saying,
Mhm.
they may not be telling you what you need to know. They may be talking around it, right? So you're
Mhm.
looking for the pieces of what they're saying that don't make sense, that don't
Right.
connect. And that usually tells me there's an important piece of information that I don't have. So
Mm.
starting to ask more questions. I'm
Mhm.
trying to get better at appreciative inquiry where I can ask more leading questions to hopefully get to the heart of what an issue is. And I use that in negotiations. If someone's explaining an issue and I understand the issue, but what they're saying doesn't compute, I'll start to ask more questions. And it's usually some fundamental piece that they've left out because they either chose to leave it out, um, or they've accidentally left it out. But without that important piece of information, the rest of it doesn't hold together and make sense. So I
Yeah.
think it is listening analytically, and I'm
Mhm.
hearing what people are saying, but also really thinking about it and not just letting it pass through but really thinking about, okay, how does this all hold together? And
Yeah.
what are the messages that they're telling you? Because people usually will tell you who they are. We just don't listen most of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't want to hear it, but I do think a lot of times people will tell you who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, in the follow up to that is, well, okay, you've got this feeling about it, asking, being curious and asking those questions to verify and find out the deeper things that are not being said.
Yeah. And I think empathy is a part of that too, right? Because if you can put yourself in their shoes and really start to understand the situation they're describing, how they might be feeling, how it's impacting them, you can start to get a better sense of the right questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, some deep questions coming up here. Are you ready? How do you want to be remembered?
I think I would like to be remembered for making a difference in our industry, hopefully making a difference also in the real estate side of our industry. It is the least diverse area of our industry in terms of leadership, if you look at the numbers. And I think if I can encourage the next generation to embrace hospitality real estate as a career path, my hope is that there will be more different looking people in this area of the industry, and we can create forever change at the top in the future.
Love it. And finally, before we end today, this kind of goes back to something you said earlier about some of the students who or people that you've worked with, and particularly often women who they don't dream big enough. So we're going to tap into your dreams here. What vision would you pursue if you had everything you needed to succeed right now?
I'd like to see hospitality real estate have a similar number of men and women in chief development officer and chief investment officer roles. I think we need to start sooner. Again, hence my intro to hotel real estate class. But I think if we can widen the funnel of people getting into this area of the industry, we can start to make change. I'm a big believer that talent is distributed evenly, but opportunity is not. So
Mhm.
let's give more different looking people opportunities to work in this area of the industry and grow up in this area of the industry. It will bring different perspectives, which will make us stronger. It will give them tools to have an amazing aspirational career. The career I've had is not anything I could have dreamed when I set foot in hotel schools, mostly because I didn't know most of those jobs were jobs until before I took them, or even a job that I could have until the opportunity presented itself. So if I can give the opportunity for more people to dream sooner and lean into their ambition to pursue their dreams, that's what I would love to do.
Love it. Love it. Well, it goes back to that idea of being a fountain, and you are certainly a fountain and inspiration for me, Lan. So thanks for joining me today on the Travel Leader. This has been a wonderful discussion, and I've learned so much more about you and your leadership journey. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Thank you. It's my
Thanks
pleasure. Thank you
again.
for what you're doing, Rachel. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Lan. Bye bye.